This is
Chat the Great.
I came down to London and I thought, well, I've met a few A&R people through being a manager, and it should be pretty straightforward. And I'd met some A&R people, and they were all, they seemed pretty cool, and thought, get back in touch with them. Didn't get back in touch with me though. Okay, so I just started looking in the papers. There was EMI had a graduate trainee scheme. Applied for that, didn't get it. There were jobs going at PRS. For like no money. It was like £5,000 a year to input data into computers. Didn't get that. Went for a job at the Record and Tape Exchange. Thought this is a cinch. Didn't get that. So I just kept on going and kept on going. But I guess I was just a bit gauche and a bit northern, and my face didn't fit. And I kept on doing that, and I did a succession of really rubbish jobs. After working for the post office I got a job. I washed up at Arthur Anderson's accountants. They had a big canteen there, so I was a washer up there for a bit. Then I got a job at Unilever, and it actually was a job editing technical documents. So these were documents that detailed how Lux soap was made. And I had to go through them and make sure literally the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, the commas were in the right place. So I really was crossing the T's and dotting the I's at Unilever. Got signed up with every temping agency. And off the back of that, I got a string of jobs that could pay the rent and, enable me to go to gigs and go out and drink. And then one of my temping agencies called me back and said, there's a job going at Universal. They need a post boy. Sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in. I was just, oh, God, yeah, Universal, fine. The movies, I can do movies, fine. I was in there. And even though it was a job actually, Universal Pictures in the UK, I discovered was one guy and his secretary, and that was it. But basically within the building, and they used to have this massive building on Piccadilly, next to the Hard Rock Cafe, just by Hyde Park Corner, 139 Piccadilly. It was actually a gift from Lord Nelson to his mistress, Emma Hamilton. So she'd been there originally. So a big grand house. In the old days, all the record companies and publishing companies used to be big grand houses. And the gig there was basically sitting on the front desk, being the post boy, but I'd also sit there late at night, and we had a screening theatre in the basement. And so you'd get people coming in to see screenings, and I'd stay there till like midnight to keep the doors open and lock the building up. And we used to get David Bowie came in to see a screening with Marie Halvin and Jerry Hall. So two supermodels and David Bowie. I mean, and David asked me if I had a cigarette. I didn't. So I had to go next door and buy cigarettes for him.
Wow.
So yeah, I think somewhere I still have a cigarette butt belonging to David Bowie. And yeah, the Monty Python team had come in. Dodi Fayed, who was a big film producer at the time, he came in a few times. So that was interesting. But what was super interesting is that on the first floor of the building was a company called MCA Music. And MCA Music Publishing was a music publishing company. And I had even having managed a band, I had no idea you could get a publishing deal for the songwriter in the band. And that's, basically every time a song gets played on the radio or a record got sold, then money was generated for the songwriter. And publishing companies collect that money and they pay it through to the songwriter and they take a piece of that. And it was just like, oh my God. And they had a talent scout and they had A&R people. So it was just like, oh God, so this is like a record company, but I'm actually in the building. So I spent a year as a post boy, and I was really cheeky because obviously every night I'd lock the building up. But before I locked it up, I'd be the only one in there. So I'd just go through all the A&R man's desks and notes and files and papers, listen to the demos, and, get excited when they were looking at a band I knew. And, I'd get to talk to the A&R people about it. And they had a talent scout there, and I was just sort of like, "Oh, how you doing? Yeah, I really want to do your job." And he was just sort of like, "Yeah, you better just disappear," because he was really, no, he wasn't that bad. He was no, and he's a really good guy, and he was brilliant at encouraging me.
Yeah.
But I think there was definitely an element of yeah.
Okay.
Let's go do a meeting. And so he wasn't, I don't think he was delighted about it. But long story short, and so basically I laminated myself a little card with Mike Smith, Talent Scout, MCA Music. And I'd go out around London at night, and suddenly, if you got a card like that, I could get into gigs for free. Like if they were like, and I'd just say, "Hi, I'm an A&R guy for MCA Music." You rang up beforehand, spoke to the promoter at the Bull and Gate, or the Falcon, or the Mean Fiddler, and you could get a pass. In those days, they used to give you like a membership pass for clubs that A&R people could get. So like Dingwall's had one, the Mean Fiddler up in Harlesden had one, and you could just get in whenever you wanted to see bands. I mean,
wow.
Can you imagine? That's
insane,
like
yeah. It's like gold dust, isn't it?
It is like a Nando's black card.
Yeah.
It really was. For a music fan, it was the same thing. One of my favorite bands is Blondie. So, and I loved the Primitives who'd come through, and they were a band I'd watched a lot and really loved. So the Darling Buds came through, and the Primitives had a hit, and I just thought, oh, the Darling Buds, they could have a hit because they've got some catchy tunes. And the singers, Andrea, she's quite striking, and guitarist Harley, he looks really cool in a kind of James Deany sort of way, and they're making this great kind of buzzsaw pop. So I got a little carried away, rang up the manager and said, "I love your band, tell us a bit more about them," and basically started, getting involved. And he was excited, thinking, "Oh, great! I've got a publishing company interested in me."
Yes.
And in the end, the A&R upstairs heard about the Darling Buds, and they rang the manager, and he said, "Yeah, I'm talking to your talent scout, Mike Smith." And they went, "Oh, Mike works in the post room." And they went, "Oh." So I got in so much trouble, and luckily they didn't fire me, but it was quite a weird moment when the manager came in and saw me on the front desk, and there was a bit of a kind of like, and then he went up to see the A&R people. Anyway, then the A&R guys that were there, they had a massive hit record with Fairground Attraction, a song called Perfect, #1, and got so excited, they quit their jobs and started their own publishing company.
Wow.
Yep. And so new A&R people had to be found. When they left, the talent scout also left. So the two A&R guys that came in, they were looking for a talent scout. And I got everybody I knew to speak to them and say, "Hire me." So like all the assistants and secretaries in the building. There was a couple of A&R scouts that I knew from going out to gigs. So I got them to talk to them.
Yeah.
And they hired me as a scout. So and it's a very long 45-minute introduction is how I got into the music business properly.